Joshua, chapter 10, starting in verse 29. Then Joshua and all Israel with him passed on from Makkedah to Libnah and fought against Libnah. The Lord gave it also with its kings into the hands of Israel, and he struck it and every person who was in it with the edge of the sword. He left no survivor in it. Thus he did to its king, just as he had done to the king of Jericho. And Joshua with all Israel with him passed on from Libnah to Lachish, and they camped by it and fought against it. The Lord gave Lachish into the hands of Israel, and he captured it on the second day, and struck it, and every person who was in it with the edge of the sword, according to all that he had done to Libnah. Then Horam, king of Gezer, came up to help Lachish, and Joshua defeated him and his people until he had left no survivor. And Joshua and all Israel with him passed on from Lachish to Eglon, and they camped by it and fought against it. They captured it on that day and struck it with the edge of the sword, and he utterly destroyed that day every person who was in it, according to all that he had done to Lachish. Then Joshua and all Israel with him went up to Eglon, to Hebron, and they fought against it. They captured it and struck it and its king and all its cities and all the persons who were in it with the edge of the sword. He left no survivor according to all that he had done to Eglon, and he utterly destroyed it and every person who was in it. Then Joshua and all Israel with him returned to Debir, and they fought against it. He captured it and its king and all its cities, and they struck it with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed every person who was in it. He left no survivor, just as he had done to Hebron, so he did to Debir and its king, as he had also done to Libnah and its king. Thus Joshua struck all the land, the hill country, and the Negev, and the lowland, and the slopes, and all their kings. He left no survivor, but he utterly destroyed all who breathed, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Joshua struck them from Kadesh Barnea even as far as Gaza, and all the country of Goshen even as far as Gibeon. Joshua captured all these kings and their lands at one time, because the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. So Joshua and all Israel with him returned to the camp at Gilgal. This morning, what really comes to my mind is that Joshua didn't just have a mission. Joshua was on a mission. There's a subtle difference between having a mission and being on a mission. Having a mission simply implies that you've been given orders. It simply implies that someone's commanded you to go and do something. It simply means that there's something you should be accomplishing right now. Having a mission is what we talked about a couple days ago, where we talked about the idea of persistently seeking instruction, discerningly obtaining instruction. And the idea of having a mission is that you've discerningly obtained instruction. You have what you're supposed to be doing. You know where you're supposed to go. And Joshua didn't just have a mission. He was on a mission. The mission was very simple. The mission was very clear. God had told him before, be strong and courageous, do not be terrified, for you will give this land as an inheritance to the sons of Israel. Moses commanded him in front of all the people, be strong and courageous, do not fear or tremble, for you will go into this land and you will give it as an inheritance to these people. Joshua not only had a mission, but he was on a mission. How do I know he was on a mission? How do I know he was on a mission? The verses we read today, the Bible I'm reading out of, titles it Joshua's Conquest of Southern Palestine. Joshua was on a mission, and I know he was on a mission because the Lord gave it also with the Lord gave him Libnah. The Lord gave him Lachish. The king of Horam, the Horam, the king of Gezer, comes, and Joshua defeats him. Then Joshua and all Israel with him went up from Eglon to Hebron. And there's all these places, Debir and the Negev and Kadesh Barnea, all the way to Gaza and all the country of Goshen and as far as Gibeon. Joshua goes and he does what the Lord told him to do. He does what the Lord told him to do. He's executing with zeal the plan of God to deliver this land into the hands of Israel. He has a mission, and he's on a mission. How do I know if I'm on a mission? How do I know if I have a mission? How do I know if I'm on a mission? We talked before about the idea of obtaining instruction, of seeking persistently instruction with perseverance, discerningly obtaining instruction, and zealously executing instruction. You know if you have a mission because you've done the first two. You know if you're on a mission because you do the third. You know if you have a mission because faith has been united with hearing. You've heard the Lord and you believe the Lord, so you have a mission. You have a mission regardless. But you know when you're on a mission when you have belief, when you love a truth so much that you're willing to act on it. What are the things we see in Joshua's life that we can learn from that help us know that he was on a mission? What things was he doing? Was he just going out to fight battles? Was he just going out to fight? In Joshua 6:1, we see now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the sons of Israel. No one went out and no one came in. The Lord said to Joshua, see, I have given Jericho into your hands with its king and valiant warriors. You shall march around the city, all the men of war circling the city once. You shall do so for 6 days. So one of the ways we know Joshua's on a mission is that he's having a back and forth conversation with the person who sent him on that mission. You know, unless you are on like a secret mission, unless you're on like one of those missions where it's like, so we're dropping you in the middle of enemy territory and hope to see you in 2 weeks. Unless it's that kind of mission, you're having constant communication with the person who sent you on the mission. Because a mission's a real broad thing typically. A mission's like, I need you to go start a business. I need you to do the laundry. I need you to go pick this up. I need you to go and start this ministry. Now, missions can be small things. Your mission can be, I need you to go to the kitchen and I need you to get X, Y, or Z. I need you to go cook dinner. I need you to go cook the church food tonight. But we know that Joshua was in constant communication. And so there was a constant process of seeking, obtaining, and executing instructions. What else do we see in the life of Joshua? What else do we see going on that tells us that Joshua was on a mission? It says in Joshua 2:1, that Joshua the son of Nun sent two men as spies secretly from Shittim, saying, go, view the land, especially Jericho. So they went and came into the house of a harlot whose name was Rahab and lodged there. So even before Joshua was actually accomplishing the primary mission, so the goal was give the land as an inheritance to the people. There were a lot of steps before that inheritance started to come to pass. You might use the fruit metaphor and say there were a lot of things that had to happen before he started bearing fruit. So he's sending out spies. He's getting the people ready. He's taking them into the land. There's communication with God going on. He's following the instructions of the Lord. And we see a lot of activity. You know, the activity reminds me of James chapter 2. In James chapter 2, in verse 26, we're going to start back a little bit, it says, we're going to start out back a little bit. Even so faith, in James chapter 2, verse 17 says, even so faith, if it has no works, is dead, being by itself. But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without the works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that God is one? You do well. The demons also believe and shudder. But are you willing to recognize, you foolish fellow, that faith without works is useless? Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up Isaac his son on the altar? You see that faith was working with his works, and as a result of the works, faith was perfected. And the scripture was fulfilled, which says, and Abraham believed God, and it was reckoned to him as righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. You see that a man is justified by works and not by faith alone. In the same way, was not Rahab the harlot also justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out by another way? For just as the body without the spirit is dead, so also faith without works is dead. What we're seeing is Joshua had faith. Joshua heard the words of Moses. He heard the words of God. He had faith. He believed in the living God. It's that part where he was going to live it out. It says the demons believe and shudder. You believe that God is one. You do well. The demons also believe and shudder. So what's the problem here? The problem is, our definition is to love a truth enough that you're willing to live it out. The demons love the truth enough that God is one to live it out. Do you know how they're living it out? They're shuddering. The evidence of their belief is the fact that when Jesus shows up, they see Jesus and say, Jesus, Son of the Most High God, what do we have to do with you? Do not cast us into the pit. Have you come to torment us before the time? They're scared of him. Probably because there's no option for them. There's no redemption for them. What we see in Joshua is that he had works with his faith. Now, I want to be very clear about this. Works don't help you get into heaven. Works don't get you into heaven better. You don't have a better chance of getting into heaven if you do works. Jesus took care of that. The process was that you have a legal issue, and your legal issue is that you've broken God's law, and the punishment for that, the legal judgment, is hell. It's separation from God for all eternity. Jesus comes and lives a perfect life, so he fulfills the entirety of the law with his life, and then he goes and he dies on a cross for you. And what that means is that when you go to heaven, all of your law breaking is going to, what happens is that got placed on Jesus, and so his life gets placed on you. So when God checks the whole law against you, all he sees is fulfilled, 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 fulfilled. So your legal issue, your should I go to hell issue, is dealt with by Jesus. Your works come into play because now you're part of a family. Your works come into play because if you're really saved, if you're really transformed, if you really have a faith that is alive and active, then there's going to be transformation in your life. There's going to be things that are happening that make you different. There's going to be, it could be as simple as you used to cuss and now you're not cussing. It could be that you wanted nothing to do with church and now you go to church once a week. And there's a progression, right? So if all that ever happens is I stop cussing and I never keep growing, the question is, am I alive? How does this come back to Joshua? Joshua's faith and his works were together, and he was on a mission. The question for me is am I on a mission? Now, I don't have just one mission. I do have just one mission. My one mission is to build the kingdom of God. My one mission is to make disciples of all nations. That one mission of building God's kingdom, that one mission of making disciples of all nations permeates to so many different areas of my life. And so the question becomes, how am I doing with all of my submissions? So, the word submission just means there's a mission and I'm submitted to the mission. That's what the word to submit means, is there's a mission and I'm submitted to the mission. A submission is a subordinate part. It's a component of the overall mission. So my mission is to build the kingdom of God. It's to make disciples of all nations. I have submissions. I have a submission to my family. I have a submission to disciple my wife, to disciple my son. I have a submission to make disciples at work. I have a submission. How am I doing in all those areas? How am I doing? I think, if I'm being honest, I have really great examples around me. I think that, like Joshua, the Lord put me in a position where I had a choice to be submitted to leaders that have really helped me grow and change and transform. I think where I'm looking at in my life is what are those actions, like sending out spies? And the question still is, am I on a mission? What is my mission? What is my mission? To be honest, I think I want to go through a transition because I think my mission in life, I wanted to go in one direction, but the Lord's pulling me in another. I honestly think that a lot of my mission right now has to do with not wanting my Father in heaven to be upset with me. And I think there's a mentality. I think there's a danger for me of a works righteousness sort of thing where I'm doing the things God tells me to do because then I'll be in good relationship with him. And I want to be careful with the term works righteousness, because I don't think I'm saved by my works. But I think I'm struggling with the idea. I don't know if I'm even struggling with it because there's something healthy about it. I think my mission, I honestly don't know if my mission is to save souls. I don't know if that's at the forefront of my mission. I don't know if that's at the forefront of my mind. I don't know if that's at the forefront of where I'm at in my maturity. I think there are things that I know my Father wants me to do, and I want to please him and I want to be obedient because I don't want him to be mad at me. And I think that plays a lot into my mission. My mission is to not make my Father mad. And I firmly believe that I can make my Father in heaven angry. Not so much that he kicks me out of that. I mean, I think that's a whole nother conversation. I think I can make my Father in heaven angry. I think that as a dad, I can get angry at my son. And I think I can be upset with him. And I think a lot of my drive mission right now is to not make my Father mad. And so I'm teaching a Bible study yesterday, and afterwards I feel very off. And I'm praying, and I feel like the Lord might be telling me, good job. But it's weird. It's weird because I'm more willing to listen to the voice of the enemy that says you failed miserably because of how I'm feeling than to listen to the voice, what I think of my Father say, good job. I think that my mission right now is to not make my Father mad. And I think I need to grow in that. I think I'm immature in my understanding of what the mission is. I think there's some personal things in my life. I think there's been a lot of, I've always felt like an outsider because I grew up with ADHD. So I had behavioral issues. Every week I would go see a psychologist. And I had to leave class, partway through the class, to go get some medication to help with the ADHD. And there were some other things in my life that I just, when I was little, I got caught up in some sexual morality. And I knew it was wrong. And so you're like 12, 10 or 12 or 8. You're caught up in some sexual morality and you don't tell anyone. And the guilt just weighs on you, and it weighs on you, weighs on you. And so I think that I was treated differently because of the diagnosis. And it's not like my parents, I don't think they did something wrong. I just think that I knew I was different. And then I think that I had other things going on and I had no outlet for it. I had no Jesus to run to and confess. I had no sense of this is a great thing to talk to my parents about. Eventually I talked to my dad about it, and that was a major relief. But it was years that I didn't talk to, that I didn't go speak, that I didn't go talk to him. And I think that I remember growing up, and I remember being worried that I was doing something wrong. And so I would confess everything to my dad because I didn't want to be guilty. And I couldn't explain to you why. I just know that not making my dad angry, not disappointing him, was a big deal. And so now as a Christian, I think my bar is, right now my mission is don't disappoint dad. And I think Joshua had a much grander mission, which was to give an inheritance to a people. And I think with my son, I think there's something different with my son. I think with my son, there's this sense of I have a vision in mind for him. And this is just my vision because I'm a dad. But I have a vision of wanting him to be in a position where if he decides that he wants to be, not even if he wants to be, If the Lord's call for him is to be a missionary, I want to train him to be a missionary. If the Lord's call for him is to be a pastor, I want to train him to be a pastor. I just want him to have such a solid biblical foundation that he won't have the struggles with questioning and unbelief that I have. I just want him to know the living God and hear the voice of God. I want to have a kid who, when he's 6 years old, is hearing the voice of the living God and executing on what the living God is showing him. I have a mission in mind for my son, and I don't think that is about not making my father angry. I just think for some reason I've got this drive in me to make sure my son doesn't grow up like I grew up, not knowing the living God. Because I'll tell you what, the foundation of my mission may be not making my father mad, but the joy of my life is connecting with my Father in heaven. The joy of my life is hearing the voice of God. The thing that makes me most excited more than anything else is that God is speaking to me. And maybe that roots back to the fact that if he's speaking to me because he's not angry, and he speaks to me when he's angry too, but I'm excited when he speaks to me when he's disciplining me. And it doesn't mean he's mad when he's disciplining, but I'm just saying I'm excited when I'm getting spanked and he's talking to me. But I just love that he's talking to me because I know he's not mad at me. But that's the joy of my life. My peace comes from knowing my dad is talking to me. And the talking and what he says brings peace in my life. And I want him to have that. What's your mission today? Are you on a mission? Or do you just have a mission? I think there are areas in my life where I just have a mission. I'm not on it yet. We actually, it was only one door and it was a Christian neighbor. We actually went and knocked on a door and prayed for a neighbor yesterday. I think that's going to become our new Monday thing. Every Monday, we're going to go out, find a new door, even if it's just one neighbor. By the end of the year, you'll have met 52 neighbors. That's pretty good. I think God will grow it. But we're on a mission there now. If you've been listening, that's been a struggle. And if you've been praying for me, thank you. I was still really scared, even though we know the person, that we prayed for him. And I think God opened a door. I think God may have given some wisdom in that prayer. Are you on a mission today? Are we on a mission? That's the question. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you. Take the safety off. Go out all guns. You're on a mission. We're in a war. It's time to go out all guns.